All right, I'm Danny with Blizzplanet. We also have Arthur here. I'm interviewing Ion Hazzikostas, and we're going to be talking about 7.3.
Awesome.
So, why don't you tell me what you're most excited about 7.3? What can players look forward to, and what's your favorite thing that you're looking forward to right now?
So I think 7.3 is an epic patch. It's pretty ambitious. We are not just doing the standard new zone, it's literally going to a new planet in this case. So 3 diverse regions to explore, really story-driven arc that's the backbone of the entire patch. And I think that's probably what I'm most excited about getting, having in players' hands. I think, this is from start to finish a quest line that is just epic, top-level storytelling. There's no fluff here, there are no light quests. This is all major characters. It's Illidan, it's Velen, it's Turalyon, it's Ilaria, it's, all of that supporting cast fighting for the survival of Azeroth, learning secrets about the origin of the Legion, the players getting insight into the history of the Eredar that became the Draenei, and there's just going to be this, and also some mind-blowing cinematics along the way. So I think that's really the backbone that in many ways sets this patch apart from almost any that I can think of in terms of the amount of core storytelling that's happening in that outdoor quest experience.
Okay. So you mentioned cinematics. We haven't seen anything yet, obviously. Yep. And I know that you don't like to do that on the PTR, but yep. Are we going to get a 7.3 like intro cinematic as well as stuff in the questing and raids?
There will be, yes, there are those cinematics for sure. I think in general we like to have the cinematics be discovered organically as people are playing the game. I think we know that once they're on the live servers, they will get revealed, they'll be put up on fan sites. We want to give as many people as possible the chance to encounter them organically playing the game for the first time rather than having seen them online and having them spoiled.
So we noticed that there's a new Draenei model, the Lightforged Draenei. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of customization on those that aren't on the models for the existing Draenei. Are we going to see any of that in the future for our Draenei characters, or is that pretty much just the NPC models?
For now it's just the NPC models. Can't really say what the future holds.
Right.
But yeah, I think that we were just trying to build out a very different ecology of Draenei. These are the Army of the Light, Lightforged, and they have been in this direct service to the Naaru, fighting the Legion, fighting these battles across worlds. We wanted to make them very visually distinct, mm-hmm. and as we're filling out a full cast of NPC characters, we just wanted a lot more customization to help distinguish them from each other. Now, in terms of player customization, we know that's something that there's always demand for, and for sure that's the sort of thing we want to revisit in the future and just open up customization options wherever possible.
Yeah, it blew up. We tweeted something about it. It blew up. So
yeah,
people are definitely excited and interested in it. So, what about daily content? What kind of daily content can we expect, and what's going to be the daily type grind that we do in 7.3?
Yeah, so I think core systems. I think there's World Quest, which are of course omnipresent in Legion. We have 2 new factions with emissaries. We're also adding an emissary for Armies of Legionfall, Broken Shore. That way you're not going to be spending that much time there, but occasionally when that emissary pops up, it's a reason to go back and revisit that zone, trying to keep things balanced in terms of where you go. The standard, treasures, rare elites, a lot of our endgame systems. We have an all-new currency, Veiled Argonite, that is kind of the successor to Nether Shards in some ways. Our good friend, the Ethereal Trader with the relinquished items, has made his way to Argus in search of this, with all new items that players have forgotten to loot from corpses, and in exchange for Argonite, he can get you that. We also have, there are BOA tokens that will drop from things in the zone, Timeless Isle style, or kind of like the baleful things from Tanan. Again, just to help with alt catch up, or if you want to mail them to a leveling character even, they can just have a big boost waiting for them as soon as they hit 110. Another big twist is going to be our invasion point system. So these invasion points are basically massively multiplayer public scenarios, kind of similar to the 7.0 invasions before Legion kicked off. Players will be able to go through invasion point portals that are essentially rifts leading to other worlds where the Legion is also trying to scour life from the galaxy. And as soon as you go through one, you will find yourself in a public scenario with a bunch of other people there as you defeat Legion lieutenants, deal with environmental hazards, and eventually work your way up to defeating the invasion commander. And then there's a greater invasion point that has, raid world boss level stuff with comparable rewards as part of your general sort of outdoor gameplay loop. So I think for the outdoor gameplay focused player, there's a ton to do on Argus on a regular basis.
Okay. Is there going to be more invasion point like scenarios, or are those going to be expanded upon throughout the patch, or is that kind of is that it for now?
I think there's at least 6 different settings for these, as well as a lot of randomization in terms of the types of creatures you'll be facing, the sorts of environmental hazards that may be present. So it's not like, you'll see some repeats, but there's a fair bit of gameplay variety there. And in general, there's a quest to do 5 each week, so that's kind of the expected amount. If you want to keep doing more, there's some diminishing returns past that point, that's up to you, but sort of 5 a week is a very juicily rewarded weekly quest.
Okay. Tell me about item level increase. So we have a 9-10 catch-up gear, right? So is Mythic Plus going to also increase?
Yeah, well, so this is very similar to 7.2. So the baseline level of items dropped from Heroic and Mythic dungeons will increase, which means that in turn Mythic Plus will also increase. The new cap for Mythic Plus, however, will go back to being 10. So Mythic 10 will give you the best stuff, slightly better than what a 15 gives you now, but not massively better. But that just means that all of that content remains relevant. The rewards from Heroic and Mythic, as well as the difficulty, are going up in parallel. So imagine we have this new dungeon, Seat of the Triumvirate, coming out. We're sort of bumping everything up to be on that new level. And then once the raid, once Centaurus the Burning Throne opens later this year, the Mythic Plus ceiling will go up to 15 again. The item level cap will go up. Legendaries can go all the way to 1,000, etc., etc.
What's the highest item level that we're seeing in this expansion right now?
1,000. That'll be the very end. So I think it's once once the item level cap goes up again when Centaurus opens, legendaries should be 1,000 at that point. The highest a Titan Forge item could go, or a lucky Mythic raid drop, etc., would be 985. Okay. And that's that.
Are you concerned at all with hitting 4 digits now with item level and
always
power creep and numbers getting too big again?
Yes. I think numbers are definitely on the large side.
Yeah.
We know that. I think it's likely that another squish of some sort is in the future. But in relative terms, once we're already in the 900s, I think what's another 10 or 20? It's more important that new rewards feel meaningful. I think this is something that players often ask, why does it have to be so much? Because I know it feels untidy. There's something inelegant about numbers that get so large, and I often see the concern of what if they just made it 5 eye level jumps or whatever, or didn't have such big gaps between tiers? And really, what it boils down to is we want new content to be rewarding. Right. We want, if you have been clearing Heroic Tomb of Sargeras on a regular basis, but you started in normal Tomb of Sargeras. You're a guild whose art is you start in normal mode, and then halfway through the tier, you kind of work your way into Heroic, and you finish the tier doing a lot of Heroic. Well, you're going to start the new tier in normal mode again. And if that normal mode gear is all downgrades or side grades from what you had from Heroic Tomb, then that's a very unrewarding initial progression experience. You're wiping to new bosses that you've never seen before, and when you kill them, they drop loot that's not an upgrade. That feels bad, and it's hard to see where you go from there in terms of getting better as a guild to overcome any challenges you run into. And so that's sort of what leads to the item level gaps. And when we have expansions, like Mist or like Legion, with many raid tiers, it's going to lead to a fair amount of item level creep as a result.
I think it's inevitable no matter what. So.
Yeah.
What about a fresh level 110 character? Are they going to be able to jump right into Argus? With their gear, or is it really going to be important to get the 910 catch-up gear?
So I think literally a fresh 110 trying to head to Argus, you'll have a pretty tough time. I think that's comparable to what it was like as a fresh 90 going to Timeless Isle, or a fresh 100 going to Tnan. If you're up for the challenge, there's great rewards. One thing we did was so all the World Quest rewards on Argus actually have a much higher floor than World Quest rewards back in the Broken Isles. So even if you're horrendously under-geared, you'll still see 40 and 50 eye-level upgrades from all those World Quests that are out there. But that said, I think there are a lot of catch-up mechanisms that are in place in 7.3, both on the artifact front, with all 3 relic slots being available right away for fresh characters that hit 110, or being able to bring your artifact up to 54 without having to do the Broken Shore. Those should really help players jump right into the fray, as well as artifact knowledge being a baseline global value that will shoot right up to 41 for everybody at the start of 7.3 and then just go up from there on a weekly basis. That's great on the catch-up front there. In terms of items, the fact that dungeon item level has increased, you can run normal and heroic dungeons. Heroic dungeons, I think, will give you 845 or 855 gear, so you can just chain run some heroics. That'll give you a solid baseline if you want. If you're up for it, you can do Argus under geared, but if not, there have never been more avenues to get caught up.
Cool. Why don't we talk a little bit about the final boss of the raid? Or what you can at least.
Yeah.
How about you talk about the lore behind that boss and where he's coming from and why we're fighting him?
I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well.
Yeah, sorry. So there's so the dungeon journal for that boss, as you may have noticed, is pretty blank.
Right.
So that's part of in 7.1 at BlizzCon last fall, when we talked about Argus, we mentioned it in the briefest of terms because there was no way to really explain how or why we're going to Argus without spoiling the hell out of the end of Tomb of Sargeras and where 7.2 was going.
Right.
And in this case, understanding who and what that boss is and why we're fighting it is a huge part of the story of Argus in 7.3.
Okay.
So we'll know it when we get there for sure, and the dungeon journal will not remain blank forever, but for the time being, it's a bit of a mystery.
That's fair.
Still, we have seen some things in the dungeon journal, and there are the Titans. And lore-wise, we've heard that they are dead and they were gone. So suddenly they returned. Can you tell us something about that?
So, yeah, some things that you'll learn, they were indeed effectively dead, but their pieces of their souls, pieces of their spirits remain, these Titan souls. And they were a great source of power for Sargeras, something he sought to manipulate and corrupt. But perhaps as we journey through the raid, we can redeem some of those and recover some of those, and they might aid us in the ultimate battle that lies ahead.
In this region, we've noticed there were a lot of hidden secrets, and we can't tell if we found every of the secrets. But can you tell us if there are new secrets to be found in 7.3?
There's definitely at least one new one, yes.
At least one new one. Interesting. Now, outside of 7.3, your team discussed about making the old world relevant with in the PvE endgame, using the phase technology and now also the level scaling. Now, what do you think about that right now for the future of World of Warcraft?
It's something we definitely would like to explore. I think it's not really relevant or the right fit in terms of where the story is right now. And Argus, I think going back to Westfall is probably the last of our concerns. But certainly for leveling players, I think there would be a lot of advantages if we could apply some of the scaling technology we used in Legion to those zones. You'd have much more flexibility and better pacing as you chose to level up. It's less clear how we would use that to scale max level players all the way back down. I'm not sure it feels right to be a powerful adventurer who's, champion of the Alliance or champion of the Horde, and you're going back to Elwyn or Durotar and you're having a tough fight against a wolf or a boar that was, just newbie fodder back in the day. So I'm less excited about, things scaling all the way up, but more about it as a tool for leveling players.
One question that I know it's difficult to answer, but is 7.3 the final raid tier of Legion?
Yes, it is. I think we still have more story to tell, and of course the raid's not going to be opening until later in the year, and there's more of the story of Legion after that. I think we've been very, very effective and very happy with how we've been able to tell the story of Legion through a mix of large patches and small patches, and sometimes even just non-patched live content updates, like a couple of weeks ago when Argus appeared in the sky for everybody and Doomsayers were in Dalaran and the quest Magni had most recently. That's exciting, and we want to keep doing that. We want to keep telling a story that never really feels like it reaches an endpoint, but just continues. But as far as, big raid tier, I think, yes, this is what it's all lit up to. There isn't going to be much left of the Legion or much left of us, depending on the outcome after Argus.
In general, how do you feel about the balancing of the classes right now? There are some who say the survival hunter is the least represented spec right now, and in general, are there any concerns about some classes or specs?
I think overall, I think we're satisfied with balance. I know there are always people who perceive themselves on the lower end, and no matter how good the balance is, no matter how tight the differences get between the specs, whoever is lower is always going to feel frustrated about that and is going to be vocal about it. We understand that. But I think it's an ongoing process. We're never just sitting back and saying, all right, we're done. It's okay if some specs fall behind. Representation doesn't necessarily matter as much. I think we knew with Survival Hunter that we were making a niche spec. It's a melee spec for a class that's traditionally been ranged. I think a lot of existing hunters, they were hunters because they wanted to be ranged class, and so we didn't necessarily expect them or want them to feel like they should be changing. But for new players picking up that class, it's an intriguing option. And we've seen a lot of survival hunters doing extremely well at very high levels of play. So the fact that, they're not played as often, I don't think reflects upon their potential so much as it just does where the audience is at right now. That's not as much of a problem.
There's been some discussion about artifact appearances, and recently there was, we were told that not all appearances will be taken away, that they will be still attainable. Is it finalized yet, or are you still in discussion how this will handle it?
Still in discussion a bit, but I think for the most part, our current thinking is similar to what was clarified at a stream Q&A a few weeks back. We think that after Legion, when the artifacts are sort of retired, at that point players will learn whatever appearances they have as transmogs that they can apply to future weapons. They can still go back and collect those appearances. The only exception will be a few appearances that are very skill-based in the current game. So specifically, the Mage Tower challenges, as well as completing Mythic 15. Those appearances would cease to be earnable after the next expansion comes out.
As we see here, there are some old sold characters returning finally.
Oh yes.
And now, will we see more of them? So, right.
Yes, so I think the return of Turian and Ilaria is one of the more exciting things in this patch for fans of the lore, fans of the Alliance storyline. We knew Turian was around from going back to the beginning of Legion when we did the Fallen Star quest line and retrieved that message in the beacon. We're finally meeting up with him, and of course, where he is found, Ilaria is not far behind. Now, their focus for now is definitely overcoming the Legion, but I think with characters as important as these, it's almost certain this is not the last we're going to see from them.
Now, what we do know about them, they were with the Naaru all the time, and I've heard there are some new things that we learn about the Naaru and what the role they do play. So, can you enlighten us?
I mean, the Naaru are incredibly powerful beings of light, diametrically opposed forces of light and shadow, and they are, the benefactors that empower the army of the light to stand against the Legion. But they're mysterious creatures as well. Their motivations aren't always clear or knowable to us because of how hard they are to understand. And so I think learning more about them and dealing with them in various forms is something that players will have to grapple with as they go through Argus. And I think that's a big part of the story for people to experience themselves.
As for another thing, it's kind of related to the Naaru. It's the opposite of the light, the void. We've seen there's some things are going on there. So what role does the void have in 7.3?
Okay, so in the second section of Argus called Macquarie. This is a preserved piece of the old Eredar, which later became Draenei civilization. Because it's broken off the planet, it's been floating over the surface, so it's been largely untouched by the Fel and the Legion influence. We get to see a piece of that old civilization. And as part of that, there was a Naaru within the Seat of the Triumvirate dungeon. And as we've seen in places like Naaru and the Sunwell, Naaru that are sort of left alone, Naaru that are exposed to corruption, they can become shadow, they can turn to the void and actually become a powerful source of darkness. And so there's something very wrong in Macquarie, as we'll quickly discover. And there are patches of unleashed void all over the place. It's a very different sort of threat than what the Legion has come to pose to us. But it's something we're going to have to brave if we want to recover some of the powerful relics that are within that we need to fight the Legion. And in the course of doing that, we're going to learn a lot more about the nature of light, the nature of shadow, and Ilaria Windrunner is going to be our companion through a lot of those journeys.
I've also seen some ethereals are coming back too. Can you tell us something about their role in the story?
Yes, I think they're certainly a race that's been connected to the Draenei, connected to sort of spacefaring. It made a lot of sense for them to make an appearance on Argus. And there's a group of ethereals that in particular have an affinity to this void energy. And they're going to be another one of players' primary enemies in that second section, Macquarie.
One final question for you.
Okay.
And now we have seen from some other game of Blizzard that Jaina is a Dreadlord. Will we see more concerning that in World of Warcraft?
Yeah, Jaina is not a Dreadlord. It's, Heroes of the Storm, much like Hearthstone in many ways, not canon when it comes to the lore of World of Warcraft. Our good friend Jesse Cox is the source of a great and enduring meme, and paying homage to memes is a wonderful thing to do with skins, especially in other games. But, we may hear more from Jaina in the future, but she's not a Dreadlord.
I think Jesse Cox would not like to hear that.
Sorry, Jesse. Not a Dreadlord.
Well, thank you for your time, and
Of course. My pleasure. Thank you.